All right. Esteem, our esteemed speaker is Taylor Wahlkamp, and she's a senior executive recruiter, LHH, People Plus Technology. And Taylor, are you with us right now?
I am.
All right, where are you? I don't. We need to highlight you. Are you on
Um,
camera or off camera?
I'm on camera.
Okay. Let me see if I can. There you go. We highlighted a second person by accident. Let's see if we can find. Okay. So you've got the floor. Go ahead and um introduce yourself, tell us all about you, and give us one tip that most people may not know that you have to share with us, and you can blow our minds. So the floor is yours. Take it away, Taylor.
Thank you. I am nervous, I will say. I am an executive recruiter with LHH. I've been with them going on 5 years now. I was actually previously in healthcare and healthcare sales and got laid off shortly after the pandemic. Um, so that's something I certainly bring in with up until that moment, I kind of felt like recruiting was a scam um, in the healthcare industry. I really had only had people send, kind of random text messages or messages reaching out for jobs that I wasn't really interested in. It didn't really make sense to me that companies would pay someone to find them an employee or anything like that. So I will attest that that is not the case if you feel that way. I have learned on that, but that just kind of shows kind of how blind I was coming into it. But I have really loved it. I really love helping people. I still very much remember any time that there's been, a period between jobs in our household and the feelings that come with that. So I love being able to help people find a new role, whether they're in between jobs or just looking to get out of their current situation. Um, but I think I kind of thought about this a little bit, and I hope what I do share is new. I know there's, a lot of information out there, especially with, social media and everything, of people giving all kinds of tips and ideas. And I kind of hate to jump into that because there's so many options, and it's very hard to pinpoint anything because you just, especially when you're in a situation between jobs, you never know what will work. So I will say, what I say is, I hope people take it to heart, but also, if there's other thoughts or ideas or plans, like please feel free to go with that. You never know. Um, so one thing that when I talk to people often, after interviewing them for a certain job and they're doing their own search, I think they often feel kind of overwhelmed with the amount of jobs posted and trying to find, where to apply, what to apply to, not to spend, 8-10 hours a day just applying and not getting any feedback. I find that people who are looking within like similar industries or environments, I think that is kind of the best bet. And that's kind of where I tell people to streamline. So if you're coming from manufacturing or retail or banking, first and foremost, I would immediately try to find companies within that same space. Um, if I have two candidates that are kind of narrowed down for a certain job, it's very often that the company will go with the person that comes with that background. I don't think it's always such a big transition that it's made out to be, but over and over again, I do see this repeated with clients that they like to have people with that background and understanding that they know have succeeded within that. And some of those can be, like I said, same or similar. So that even goes to if you're coming from a Fortune 500 type company, you're better off to try to stick within another Fortune 500 or another large company. If you're coming from a startup, looking at other startups or smaller type companies, because most companies still want to grow, even if they're not in that startup environment. But then it shows, you have the experience of wearing multiple hats, like so many small companies like to say. Or if you're coming from a big environment, you understand the red tape, you understand how the corporation works and all the nuances that come with that. Um, so I think that's one good way to narrow that down. You can also do that by when you're searching on LinkedIn or something, pinpointing certain industries or pieces of technology, like in my case, or skill sets that you have. So when searching for a job, instead of just searching like a business analyst role, because those can often be a varied title throughout, each company, is finding like a certain piece or attribute. So I've worked with someone who was in the FMCG industry, so fast manufactured consumer goods. If you search that on LinkedIn, and that's it within one of the job descriptions or in their general description, that would come up first and foremost. It's not foolproof. I will say that. I wish it was. But I do find it kind of helps open some new opportunities that maybe if you're just looking for a specific job title that you might not have seen. Or someone, if you're working with an ERP system or something like that, like Microsoft Dynamics, or like you mentioned, Java, which Java would probably give you a lot. But something like that within your area, if those are mentioned within that job description, you can search those things and have that come up versus the role. So the role may not be exactly what you were doing before, but you're finding, that key skill set or environment or technology that you have experience with that you can kind of highlight with that job search. I also recommend to people in that regard is to do like a Google search or use Chat GPT or AI or something like that to find similar companies within a certain industry or whatever environment within your area. I think a lot of times people are surprised with how many companies are around them that they might would be a fit for that they're really not aware of before. And a lot of them are not posting like on LinkedIn or Indeed or things like that. So you can narrow that down. If you're using AI, you can even search for companies using specific softwares or technologies if you're in the IT space within a certain area and kind of get an overview based off of that and maybe narrow that search from there. So I think that's the first thing. The only other thing I kind of wanted to highlight just for people is just to kind of get to know your recruiter. I talk to people a lot, and I think a lot of times the impression is that, I have a long list of jobs in a certain area. I've got like 30 jobs sitting right in front of me that are just waiting to be filled. And while I wish that was the case, it's typically not. Um, Companies are using us for very specific things. A lot of times it's jobs that they've already tried to fill on their own. They're obviously not going to reach out to someone unless they're like us, unless they're overwhelmed or they're having an issue or they don't have people that understand the job, doing that search. So it can be a little bit more nuanced. And there's a lot of different types of recruiting companies. There's huge conglomerates like the one that I work for that's under the Adeka Group. There's independent recruiters. There's very small firms within, certain cities. So they may all be working with different clients. So it might not be self-serving, but I recommend, talking to as many recruiters as you can. And when you're done with that conversation, if you're talking about a specific job, asking them, how many of these jobs do you have available right now? How often do you see these types of jobs? What types of companies are you working with? Because sometimes I do get people who are looking to get into a big Fortune 500 company or something like that. And while I do work with those sometimes, my wheelhouse is definitely more small to mid-sized businesses. We have a whole department that focuses on enterprise because they operate in a completely different way. Um, at top of mind for people. Like I said, they just kind of feel like whatever's posted, maybe I have access to, but that's not necessarily the case. And if it's not a really strong fit, people are honestly better off pursuing that independently. If I have any kind of connection with the company, that's good to ask. If you're looking at a specific company, asking someone, have you ever worked with them before? Because maybe I can push someone, kind of to the front of the line. But if I haven't, interfering, I feel like is kind of counterproductive. Um, because we do charge a fee. So if it's not a perfect straight down the line fit, a company's not going to want to pay us, to try to take a chance on someone. So I recommend those people you pursue it on their own, because I feel like, I can be more of a hindrance than a help, um, for someone in that regard. So those are just things that I kind of see coming up regularly. I hope that's a little bit useful. But I do think, just asking those questions, getting to know, like I said, as many recruiters as you can, and really trying to get a little bit creative on how you search for a job rather than just kind of relying on job boards, because those get completely inundated with applications no matter what the job is on a regular basis. So using kind of some creativity to figure out exactly what job is open where, make sure you're not getting in with a ghost job or something like that as well. I think that would helps people kind of save time and effort and really kind of narrow their search.
Well, thank you, Taylor. We're gonna do some Q&A, and